Hey, my name is Matt, and I'm the chiropractor at the facility Denver. I operate the pain and rehab portion of the clinic. We are a multidisciplinary clinic here in Cherry Creek that practices functional medicine, mental health therapy, physical therapy, as well as nutrition and health coaching. So if you need any of those other services, we're all here right in the house. And today we're going to talk about a dynamic warm-up that we use for our skateboarding population. We're going to cover some of the most common injuries that we see with this population, as well as addressing mobility, strength, injury resilience, and just all things skateboarding and the demands that that puts on your body and how we can prepare you for your sport and keep you on your board for a long time. So for the lower leg, a big portion of skating injuries and where it requires the largest load is we're thinking from the ground up. So a lot of the times it's in the foot and the ankle. So a couple moves that we love for the foot and ankle is number one, calf raises. You can never do too many calf raises. Takes a lot of demand. And so just starting off up against the wall, getting a little bit of an angle where you're kind of leaning into the wall and just start off with double leg. And it's pretty general here. We're just going for general blood flow and then eventually getting into single leg calf raises and prioritizing full range of motion all the way up, all the way down. The goal of this is to get blood flow and also build some strength and capacity in the calves. And then a tool that we love is the Toe Pro. This helps us build the intrinsic foot strength inside the foot as we go with our calf raises. So it's a great tool. And you can just do them barefoot, similar setup up against the wall. And the big cue here is that I'm really trying to drive through my big toes as I go up into that calf raise. Both sides, same thing. We can go into a single leg calf raise on the Toe Pro. And then that's the back of the ankle. And now we want to work the front and build up resilience there. A movement that we love for that is the tibialis anterior raise. And for this setup, we can go lean our back and our butt up against the wall, and then both legs out about foot and a half away from the wall. And we're just raising our toes up to our eyes as far as we can, trying to keep that motion slow and controlled all the way through. And the easier the exercise is, the closer you are to the wall. To make it a little bit more challenging, you're going to step further away from the wall. And then if it gets too easy here, you can move into a single leg where we're just weighting one leg and then driving those toes up to the ground. And it can help to have a soft surface underneath you just for the pressure that you're putting through your heels. And that's what we have for the ankle and building resiliency in the calf and the tibialis anterior. Moving up the chain here, what we see in skaters a lot of the times is they need to have bulletproof hips. A lot of demand is put on the hips, especially as you're pushing off and getting impact through the hips. And so we want to master that control. One of my favorite moves for that is a hip car controlled articular rotation. And so the goal with this is we're trying to move the hip in that capsule as big and controlled range of motion as possible and trying to limit the amount that we're getting in our low back and the rest of our body and our limbs. And so if you find that you don't have a lot of range of motion here, that's totally okay. It should be a challenge to the hip and the hip alone. And so what we're trying to do is draw a big circle with our femur going around in our hip socket. And so you can get up against the wall, aid yourself here, and we're just going to drive that knee up. Just before you start to get a little bit of a bend in the low back, we want to keep that really tight in the hip and only in the hip. So from right here, this is about as far as I can go with that hip range of motion before I start to curl the low back. And so I'm going to come up, I'm going to rotate my foot out, and then I'm going out in a circle as far as I can, slow and controlled, and then bringing that back to my starting point, and then going the opposite direction, really trying to get up, out, and around, and really challenging that joint. Again, can't stress this enough. It's going to be really easy, and the temptation is to just bend the low back, lean to the side, extend, and just get all kind of gummy with the low back. And we want to really focus on the hip here with that full range of motion and that circle. And it's not about reps here. It's about control and getting time and just mastering those movements as you go through, and really just trying to hone in on that hip and that hip alone. Great dynamic warm-up is just the general air squat. And same thing, if you have mobility limitations here, just practice within your range. If you need to stick something up underneath the heels just to get things moving and get that range of motion right, that's totally okay. What we want to do here is just find a natural athletic stance. And I like to go arms out in front just because it creates a little bit of a counterbalance for me. And here we're just dropping down into a squat and then coming back up. And we just want to go for reps here. We're really just trying to get some general blood flow, warm up the tissues, and probably about 15, 20 air squats. And we're not really challenging things too much here. It's really about just getting a dynamic warm. And then also for the hips, just a general hip opener that we can be doing on the ground. I like this for the adductors and just working that hip in a different plane. Really what we're trying to do here is just get more range of motion in that hip socket and kind of work some of the adductors here. And so again, I like to go arms out in front and just kind of rock back onto my heels, let that foot pop up off the ground, feel that stretch in the hamstrings, and then pop up and rotate away from that foot that's down and really feel that stretch here in the hip. Again, I'm just sitting back and then rotating away, sitting back and rotating away. Moving up the chain into the shoulders and mid-back and scapular region. Again, I like these scapular cars, controlled articular rotations. Big goal with this is we're trying to get that shoulder nice and loose and moving. So I like to start into a plane in the scaption plane where I'm going just outside of my body here. And so I'll give you a picture here. Should be in line here with the scapula, about 45 degrees-ish. And here I'm really trying to just move in circles, out and back and around. Give you a side view here. Challenging that as far as I can, back and out. Just going for big circles, range of motion in that scap. And I want to really try and avoid a lot of the neck components that can go along with this, trying to keep a nice neutral, tall spine. Just imagine that you had someone pulling a string on the top of your head. Just think nice and tall, nice and proud. And we're avoiding any kind of neck and shrug and body movements that go along with it. I'm just staying nice and tall, nice and neutral, and just letting that motion come from the shoulder and the shoulder alone. Working up the chain here, another warm-up that we like for the shoulders is this crab position. And big cue here is I'm trying to open up my chest as much as possible. Think loud and proud here. And regression, great place to start is just getting in this position right here, really popping the chest open, lifting the heels up slightly and just rocking back and forth, getting that extension in the shoulders. And then to further express this, we want to raise the hips even higher. Think loud and proud with the chest, really driving our feet or our palms straight to the earth. So I'm kind of lifting my upper body up off the ground. And then same thing, rocking back and forth here. And then to make it even more challenging, we want to add in some other movements like lifting a heel, alternating legs. And then the final expression of this movement would be contralateral movement, where we're in this position, hips raised, and we're alternating side to side, loading those different tissues in those shoulders. As you can see, it's a pretty hard movement. And so that's a great way to get the shoulders primed. Another great way to get those shoulders engaged in just a different plane is a shoulder tap where we're in a high plank position. So hands and knees, easy starting point is just hands and knees in this quadruped position. Again, we're trying to push our body away from the earth. I'm not sitting here and then tapping my shoulders. I'm pushing my body away from the earth and then just working some general shoulder taps side to side. To progress this movement, we're going to go into a high plank. Again, I'm pushing my body away from the earth and tapping side to side. And really, I want you to try and stay as rigid as you can, like a plank, instead of leaning, opening up, and tapping. We're pushing away from the earth, nice and strong, rigid, keeping everything nice and level, and just tapping shoulders. And we can go with this movement for about 20 to 30 seconds. Another great warm-up for the shoulder is a shoulder car, controlled articular rotation of the shoulder. We did the shoulder blade before, and now this is for that whole shoulder joint. And we know that a lot of our skateboarders that we work with have experienced some sort of trauma or impact to the shoulder a foosh, which is a fallout on an outstretched hand. And so it's pretty common if you get a little bit of a crunchy feedback or clicking, popping. I would just encourage you to operate in a range of motion that feels comfortable and tolerable for you here. So for this first starting point, we're going to go thumb down and away from us. So we're rotating that arm in, and I'm starting just at my butt cheek here, and I'm just going to lift off as far as I can, really feel that engagement in my lats here before I start to peel that thumb back, out and around. And I don't want to be quick to really peel that thumb out. I want to keep that thumb in and back for as long as I can, really get that extension, and then just start to peel that off as I come up into my full circle, full expression, and then driving that thumb all the way back down to our starting position, and then working from both directions. So here we can start opening that up, and then getting to this point, rotating that thumb down, and then getting back to our starting point, and just working full range of motion and circle here. And if for you, working in this range of motion is all you can do right now without it being painful and uncomfortable, that's totally fine. Again, I can't preface this enough. We just need to operate in a space that's tolerable and feels comfortable and isn't pain provocative. So once we go joint by joint and get that slow, controlled articulation for the whole body, then we can start to get into some really general prep where we're just getting the blood flow and getting the body used to some impact and movement and get the heart rate up. And so one of my favorite exercises of all time for skaters, runners, anybody that experiences some sort of impact as an athlete is just general pogo jumps, where we're just standing double leg, staying on the balls of my feet, and I'm just jumping up and down and trying to get time under tension in that position and really load those tendons. And so I'd shoot for about 30 to 60 seconds, going for about 2 to 3 rounds, and progressing to single leg, double leg, going side to side, front to back, really just mixing up the dynamic hops. And then one of my favorite stretches is World's Greatest Stretch, a really dynamic move where we're just going into a lunge, dropping hands inside of our leg, and then just rotating out. Same thing, other side, lunge, hands inside the legs, rotating out and up. And with these, it's a really freedom of expression where you're just trying to test your range of motion, get the heart rate up, get things warm, loose, and moving.